Tuesday, July 25th meeting of Public Works. I call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now. I see no one. At this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. In attendance tonight, I have Councilor Schultz and we have Councilor Squalier coming in remotely. I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, identify yourself by name, and address and identify the agenda item on which you wish to speak. And then you may speak on it for no more than 2 minutes. And I know we have several people to speak. So please come to the podium, Carrie, identify yourself, and then...
Hi, I'm Carrie Harris. I reside on Forest Street, and I'm here on behalf of myself and my neighbor, Jim Cordero. Mr. Schultz came to my house and looked at the issue with the broken berm where the water is destroying both of our properties. The only reason I'm up here speaking tonight is because I noticed that the water damage is starting a little bit further up than we noted in the pictures. There's a spot where the sidewalk ends and the grass begins where there's no sidewalk there, and it's just coming down in different other areas into my backyard and pulling tar and sand in there. So I just wanted to add that. And also, if Bernie, you hear when they might be coming to look at it, I would kind of like to show them, you know, where all this is at, because I know my neighbor works too. So okay, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm speaking on petition 192-23 to repair or replace a berm in front of 152 Highview Street. This is a house that was formerly owned by me and is now owned by my daughter. The berm was busted up, and I had asked to have it replaced several times. It didn't get anywhere, and Councilor Kuchar told me he was at one point that it was on the list to be repaired, but I didn't get any results there. So I did ask him to put in a petition. This is the second time a petition has been put in for this, and the berm has been in disrepair for at least 3 years. And every time it rains, water goes into my daughter's yard, and it flows from a farm that is across the street, so she can't even play in that yard with her kids. So that's why I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you.
By the way, that was, Carrie was speaking on petition 21223, just for the record.
Right, this one here, yeah.
Yeah, on the back side.
Do you wish to speak?
Suppose I should.
Yes.
My name is Catherine Tucker, and I live at 308 Milk Street, and I have a city sidewalk that is crumbling. I have a big square that's 3 feet 8 inches by 3 feet 9 inches, and it's in pieces. I brought a piece. Someone's going to trip on it, and they're going to get hurt if we don't get it fixed. The sidewalk now is in about that square, and I'm only worried about that one square because the other isn't too bad. But that square is all these little pieces, and someone's going to trip on it. I do have a small rug over it right now so that the people know that it is there, but someone's going to trip, and it needs to be repaired before someone does fall and get hurt.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move on to the actual petitions, we need to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, and if we hadn't had enough time to look at it, we can approve those at the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we probably should put it off to the next meeting.
Right, so you want to make the motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to put it off until next meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the minutes until the September 26th meeting. Commissioner, DPW updates?
Okay, so I'll go.
Many.
There's many updates, and I'll go through division by division. And if there's any questions along the way, feel free to stop me. So begin with the water division. We have the supervisory control and data acquisition system upgrade project that's in progress. The contractor, Fall River Electric, is planning to do the cutovers at the 2 treatment plants sometime later on this calendar year. And this is a project essentially to replace all of the control and telemetry systems at those 2 plants and several remote sites throughout our water supply and distribution system. So we're looking forward to getting that project completed. It's been ongoing since roughly 2020, and there's been significant delays due to material shortages, and a lot of this stuff depends on electronic components. And as you know, with the chip shortage that's hit the automobile industry and all that, that's caused severe delays. So we're happy to finally get this project back on track, and this will provide much needed resiliency at the 2 water treatment plants, and better reliability and communications within the control systems that we have there. The second project that the water department's involved with right now is the design of water main replacements for Main Street and Boulder Drive. Both of those projects are being funded through money that was allocated from the ARPA funds that the city received. Both of those projects are anticipated to go out to bid in early 2024 for construction, starting in 2024 and continuing through 2025, barring any shortages in ductile iron pipe, which right now is tough to get in the quantities that we're likely to need for those projects.
What streets did you say?
Main Street and Boulder Drive.
Main Street, Boulder Drive.
There's other work that needs to happen on Main Street and Boulder Drive, which I'll get into with the wastewater division update. But ultimately, after gas, water, and sewer/drain are completed, the goal is to pave those roads, which are long overdue. Then the third and final project that I wanted to go over for the water division today is the Oak Hill tank replacement project. The contractor there is DN Tanks, and they've made great progress. They've done 2 very, very large concrete pours to get that tank constructed, and that should be online and operable in the very near future, I'd say within another month or so. So that would restore service to the Oak Hill pressure zone within the city's water system. Right now it's being pumped over from another pressure zone. So getting that tank back online will be very good for the water system. It'll improve reliability and redundancy throughout that area of the city. On the wastewater division, they've got, as you probably saw coming down Main Street, a large combined sewer separation project going on right now in the area to the north and west of Main Street. J.A. Polito and Sons is the contractor working on that project, and they've got a detour set up right now for a small area on Main Street between the Boulder and the River Street roundabout, and they're detouring traffic around that work area for the next several months. The excavation there is roughly 16 feet deep, so as a matter of public safety, we have to do the detour in order to get that work done. We're trying to get that work done ahead of Mass DOT's project to replace the River Street Bridge over by Dunkin' Donuts, Broad Street in that area. So we've got an agreement with Mass DOT that will get our piece of work on Main Street done ahead of them coming in and doing their project. So that's the reason for that work occurring now. And we'd also like to get a big chunk of that work done and the detour resolved before school starts. So there'll be a little bit of overlap with the school year and the work going on out there, but we're going to get through it as quickly as we can, barring any unforeseens with underground conditions. The wastewater division also has a design project going on right now for the East plant. They're performing locker room and control room upgrades. That project's in design and should be going out to bid very, very shortly. I know the engineering consultant was working through a few design issues with the building department. I think they've gotten the final input that they needed to move forward with the design and bid package. So I would anticipate work starting on that project, construction work starting on that project within the next several months. The wastewater division's also in design for the next phase of combined sewer separation work, which will be moving further east along Main Street, and that'll encompass the area essentially from Prospect Street east to Blossom Street. We had a design workshop with Weston and Sampson, who's the engineering consultant that's doing the design work on Monday, and that was very helpful. What we're doing when we go through these combined sewer separation projects is upsizing the drainage system to improve resiliency and account for the increases in rainfall that we're anticipating with climate change. So that involves the construction of very large drainage systems in these areas. So the project that's under construction right now, for example, will involve a 60-inch drain line that comes out underneath the River Street Bridge. And then the future combined sewer separation project on Main Street, which is in design right now, will involve another 60-inch outfall somewhere in the neighborhood of the Putnam Street Bridge. Just imagine a 60-inch pipe. I mean, that's large enough that a tall guy like myself can actually walk through it. So it just kind of helps illustrate the magnitude of the size of pipe that we need to put in the ground. So before I move on from water, wastewater, any questions?
Council Squall, you have any questions? No.
I have a question about the River Street Bridge. Any idea when MassDOT will start on that? It's going to be right after you finish?
It'll likely be right after we finish construction in that general area with J.A. Polito and Sons. So their anticipated bid schedule is this fall, and getting a contractor on board and mobilized for early next calendar year.
Okay.
So we've agreed to work on that area, get our contractor out of the way so we're not tripping over each other, and then they'll begin construction as we move further up in the watershed with our combined sewer separation project.
I have one question for Councilor Fleming as well. I think you said that you were putting the minutes off until 9/26.
Tuesday.
That's a preliminary election day. I don't think we want to meet that day.
Oh, goodness, yeah, you're right.
Good call.
Okay, well, okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Councilor Schultz. We'll work on revising the date for that. Thank you for picking up that.
And it's also my understanding that the contractor yard that J.A. Polito and Sons is using right at the intersection of Main and River Street, right next to the roundabout there, DOT is planning to use that same yard for their project. So you'll see construction vehicles occupy that site, I believe, for the next foreseeable future.
Is that the place right on the corner there?
Yeah, it used to be a used car lot.
dealership?
Yeah. So they're in there right now, and I've heard through the grapevine that Mass DOT has contacted the owner of that lot and plans to rent it out for their bridge project too.
Excellent.
Yeah. So moving on to the cemetery division, there's not a whole lot as far as construction goes happening. We completed the Memorial Gardens, which is that new section of Forest Hill Cemetery that you can see across from Memorial Middle School. The only outstanding items left for that expansion project are paving of the pathways and then final landscaping. So I'm working on contract documents right now for a whole host of paving work, including those pathways in Forest Hill. So once those are paved and the final landscaping work is done, that expansion area will be fully complete. The cemetery superintendent is starting to sell those cemetery plots in that new section. So it is available for use. Moving on to the Parks Division. We don't have any construction activity happening within the parks right now, but I just would like to note that we did have some heavy storm damage in many of the parks as a result of the rainstorm 2 Sundays ago, particularly Coggeshall Park. The access road washed out pretty heavily along the shoulder of the access drive, and then the walking path around Mirror Lake was heavily damaged too. So we're aware of those issues. We're trying to allocate resources to fix those issues, but it's going to be a little bit of time before we can actually do that, just because the magnitude of the damage elsewhere in the city. We're just having trouble trying to keep up with everything right now.
I have a question. So is the damage, especially in the walking path, around, is that more trees coming down, or is that actual damage? Is it something that you get volunteers to help remove debris, or is it something you're going to have to hire someone, or there's more to it
We can do it with in-house forces, but there's more to it than just having volunteers come and help clear brush and trees. It's heavy washouts and erosions along the pathway.
Okay.
There's sections of retaining wall along Mirror Lake that have started to collapse inward onto the
Oh,
shore.
all right.
So we need to repair the walls, and then we need to come back in, backfill the area, grade it out, and then reconstruct the walking path. So we're going to need some coordination with the Conservation Commission because we're within the buffer area for the pond there. And then we'll need to bring in heavy machinery, backhoes, excavators, et cetera, to do a piece of that work.
Thank you.
Will that be is that part of the $4 million estimate, or has it just gone up?
It is part of the $4 million estimate, yes. And I'd like to do it using in-house forces just because it's going to be a lot more affordable to do it that way, a lot more cost-effective. The problem right now is just in the list of priorities, the walking path along Mirror Lake is towards the bottom compared to roadways and other areas that were hit hard by the storm.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Councilor Squall, you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the Streets Division. So the Streets Division has been extremely busy over the past couple weeks. So we had two areas of the city which were particularly heavy hit by the storm. One being a culvert that runs underneath Forest Hill Cemetery, underneath the intersection at Rollstone and Franklin, and then underneath Nikitas Field before it discharges out into Park Hill Park. We had a section of that culvert collapse, and further investigation reveals that the whole bottom of the culvert essentially has washed out because of we assume because of the heavy rainfall that we experienced. So we've made a spot repair where the roadway collapsed right at the intersection of Franklin and Rollstone, and we've gotten that backfilled and repaved, and the roadway is now back open fully to vehicle traffic. But the section that runs underneath Nikitas Field is also in very poor condition along the bottom. So we're working on a way to fix that right now. So it's going to involve additional work within the field itself, and it's going to involve excavation, getting down in there. What we've seen is that the culvert was poured in monolithic sections, like 50-foot sections with the sides and the top, and then afterwards a 2-inch layer of concrete was poured on the bottom. That 2-inch layer of concrete on the bottom is completely washed out, and it started to undermine the walls, and that's what's causing the sinkholes. So we've got to find a way to get into the culvert at a few points along its length, pour concrete underneath the walls to underpin the walls and make sure that flows don't get underneath. And then we need to figure out a way to pour the bottom floor of the culvert and reestablish that. So I think we're going to need to excavate at approximately 100-foot intervals along the length of the culvert, install manhole access, and then get down in there and perform those repairs. So it's quite an undertaking. That's the method that we used at the intersection of Rollstone and Franklin, and it took us a few days to get all that done. So that's something that we're planning for right now. The second area of the city that was the hardest hit was the area downhill of Hobson Street. So we have a culvert on Hobson Street that is undersized, and it was also plugged up with debris and whatnot that washed downstream and clogged up the inlet. And when that happened, the stream jumped its banks, flowed downhill through backyards, through St. Anthony's Elementary School parking lot, through another building that was formerly owned by St. Anthony's along Haywood Street, and then heavily damaged Haywood Street, Birch Street, Hobson Street, and a few other roads kind of in between Water Street and Hobson Street itself. So we've temporarily patched the road back together. We've gotten the culvert back open. We've removed all the debris, and we're working on coming up with permanent repairs, including trying to upsize that culvert to make it more resilient, to be able to handle more storm flows. The culvert itself is long, and it runs underneath backyards through private property, so it's not just as easy. It's not as easy as us going out there, excavating in the roadway and putting a new pipe in the ground. There's going to be a lot of design work that needs to happen between now and us making that a more resilient culvert. So that's what we're working on right now. In the meantime, we're working on a way to bring a contractor in to permanently repair the roads that were heavily impacted. So we've patched together Haywood and Birch Street, and vehicles can drive over it right now, but by no means are those roads in good condition. So we're looking to install drainage on those roads and then do a full depth reclamation. So bringing in heavy equipment to grind up the existing asphalt and put down a new base, a new binder, and a new top. So it'll take a little while to mobilize all those activities, but that's what we're planning to do right now. And there's also a procurement process that we still have to follow. So we're kind of constrained by that. We can't just go hire any contractor off the street to get the work done. We need to follow that procurement process.
Right.
Obtain quotes from at least 3 contractors and go with the lowest quote and all that. So there's some work on our ends to do ahead of getting that work done for sure.
And this is why it takes government so long to get something done, because of the process to get it done. Councilor Schultz?
I had a question about that culvert that these on the Hobson Street. How far back does that run? You said it runs through private homes, and that's going to be a nightmare.
Our record plans for that culvert aren't the greatest. Based on what I can see, it enters the drainage system on Salem Street, and then from there works its way down through and discharges into the Nashua on the other side of Water Street. But these records go back, 100+ years. Most of them are hand-drawn, some of them are as-built, some of them are design drawings, and trying to decipher the difference between the two is a little bit frustrating. So I think what we're going to end up needing to do is a lot of field verification of our record drawings and try to utilize camera inspection whenever we can. So sending cameras up pipes to inspect them. We actually had a company called National Water Main help us out with inspecting the culvert on Franklin Road that runs underneath the cemetery. They come in with a little robotic camera that's got like RC car tires, tires that are about this big, and they put it down in the culvert and they drive up it with a remote control. And it's kind of neat to watch, but we need to do that same work on Hobson Street to figure out the extent of repairs that might be necessary, confirm what the plans show, and then come up with either a replacement or repairs.
My goodness, anything else?
And I was going to say, I heard that the DPW cleaned that culvert out just a couple of days before the storm, and it's still, you got all that debris in there.
Yep. Yeah, we cleaned it out the Sunday prior to the most recent heavy rainstorms. It washed out. We cleaned everything up within about a day, and then we had the rain 2 Sundays ago, which washed it out again. So we also did a just quick survey of the channel upstream, and we found a lot of debris kind of stockpiled on the edge of the brook. And we suspect that some of that debris, with the heavy rains and flows, washed down into the culvert and clogged it up. So kind of unfortunate to see that. I think it's something that could have been preventable, but we don't necessarily have control of the entire property, all the properties upstream of that culvert. So I guess a good reminder to residents would be to not stockpile material or debris within that area of floodplain for that channel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'm going to get that word out.
Yeah, there were a couple of makeshift bridges that went across the channel too that clearly had washed out because we found hand-hewn timbers that were wedged inside the culvert, clearly from an upstream bridge. So we've contacted that property owner, and they've removed the rest of the bridge that was over the channel there.
So thank you.
Councilor Squalier?
Thank you. Does our emergency declaration resolution allow us to expedite the bidding process at all for these emergency repairs?
So unfortunately, it doesn't help us expedite that process, but Mary Delaney, who's the Chief Procurement Officer, has reached out to the AG's office for some guidance on how to handle this situation, and they've basically allowed us a pathway to avoid having to go through the public bid process, but we still have to follow best practices. So we need to treat this area by area, come up with detailed scopes of work for each area, then solicit quotes from at least 3 contractors that are able to perform the work for each area. So in order to do that, it's still going to take a lot of time and effort, and we're kind of on the fence between doing that and getting some sort of an on-call construction contract drafted and bid out in the same amount of time that it would take to do all that. So I think we've got a couple of options, but neither of the options are quick.
Thank you. And additionally, in addition to considering, 5-foot culverts, potentially, like we were previously discussing a few years ago with small retention, areas within John Fitch Highway, maybe there's individual areas like that on some of these areas like Hobson or Birch, et cetera, that we could potentially utilize these small kind of detention areas that can slowly leach stormwater into other areas as a potential engineering solution.
I think that is a potential solution. I think the area that Hobson Street culvert winds through is pretty limited with space that's available to do that type of, or take that type of approach. A lot of the area are backyards for multifamilies that, they have a driveway and they have a very small grassed area that the culvert runs underneath. So I'm not sure we have enough space to do that, but definitely worth considering.
Thank you.
So aside from those 2 areas, there are significant issues elsewhere in the city. Pearl Hill Road is an absolute mess. There's other streets that suffered, layers of pavement sheeting off. I'm thinking specifically about Martell Street at Daniel Street. So we're still in an assessment type mode, trying to gather information on all the damage that the city suffered. There's no way we're going to be able to fix everything within the matter of a couple of weeks. I mean, we're talking months worth of backfilling erosion and fixing pavement and all that. So I would encourage you as city councilors to forward any concerns that you have to me or anyone else at DPW, and we can try to add it into our repair list. And we're trying to track these costs separately from all of the regular operations that we conduct, so that if we are able to obtain any federal or state funding for this, we know exactly what was caused by the storm, and we've got those numbers set aside. So.
Excellent.
And then last but not least, I just wanted to give an update on paving. So I am currently working on contract documents for Clarendon Street. Right now we're short engineering personnel. I'm the only person that we've got that can work on these types of contracts and get them out the door. So I'm working as fast as I can on it. I know paving is a very big issue. The roads in the city are in very poor condition. So I'm working on contract docs for the Clarendon Street reconstruction project. So that'll be Clarendon Street from the Daniel Street intersection up to Electric Ave / Franklin Road. And I'm also working on a 3-year on-call paving contract. And that will allow us to assign paving jobs to the contractor as we deem necessary in accordance with our available funding. So we've also recently completed paving of Kimball Street and Industrial Road. I think both projects came out very nicely. Kimball Street was just a quick mill and overlay, so you'll start to see cracks reflect up through that top layer of pavement that we put on the ground over the course of the next several years. There is combined sewer separation work that needs to happen on Kimball Street eventually, but the road was in such horrible condition that something needed to be done. So that's why the choice was made to pave it now instead of waiting several years until that work is underway. Industrial Road, similarly, that was in extremely poor condition. There's businesses that go in and out of there all day, specifically Harvey, recyclers, so heavy truck traffic all day long, just kind of beating against that road. So it's good to get that off the paving list finally.
Yeah, I've actually gotten a lot of phone calls how much they love the road. It's such a difference. Some of the companies that have been there for so long, and they're just amazed. They're so happy.
So we do still have some more work to do out there. Game On Way, we're planning to repave that utilizing some of the funding that was provided by Game On. That's going to include a sidewalk along one side of the road, the north side. And then one of the residents out there alerted me to some erosion happening on Roper Road. So that's also on our repair list. It's probably going to be at least another couple weeks before we can get out there to do anything with it. But we want to make sure that folks are aware that those two items are on our radar.
Okay, I think I saw Councilor Squalia's hand up, but now it looks like it's down.
Yeah, I did put it up because I was going to ask about the intersection at Victoria Lane, but I recall that it's still on the agenda, so I can wait for that if we want to discuss it then.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we can discuss it when we get to that item, I suppose.
Well, that certainly is a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't envy your job, and I just hope we can get more people, hire more people to get the work done sooner rather, than later.
Well, the other issue that we're having with these berm repairs and sidewalk repairs, there's so much that comes up on a daily basis that we need to address immediately between storm damage and other issues. I think we need to investigate bringing in a third-party contractor to start getting caught up with some of these things. So that's one of the avenues that I'm looking into right now, at least to get us caught up with our backlog of berm work, because we've got enough on that backlog to last us for 2 construction seasons, fielding at least 2 berm crews 24/7, 365. So that just speaks to the magnitude of that backlog that we need to work through.
Is there a procurement process with that as well? To get
There would be if we put out a contract for berm repairs. There would be a contract associated with that. So we need to put together the documents, get it into purchasing's hands. Purchasing needs to advertise it in the Central Register, which is kind of like a statewide bid list for all intents and purposes. Then we would need to go through that public procurement process. So solicit bids, open the bids. We'd have to go with the lowest responsible bidder, award the contract to that contractor, and then work with that contractor to begin doing the work. So that process is lengthy and cumbersome, and it can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on how detailed that contract is.
So we ask for your patience while this is all happening. Thanks. Is that all the updates? That
Yep.
was
all
quite a
I've got.
list, and I think we'll begin the agenda. Normally, what I was going to do was combine all the berms together, but since I have so many people here on specific berms, I am going to take them individually so that we can speak to that specific petition item. So we'll begin with 18223, Councilor Boschman and Councilor Schultz on behalf of residents on Kimball Street to remove overgrowing trees, pushing an existing wall, causing the said wall to lean.
So I agree with this petition. I've noticed those trees growing on top of that wall for years since I started here. I've tried to do something about that and haven't gotten anywhere with it. But now that I'm the commissioner, I think I can actually make that decision. So I agree with this. I think we need to have a contractor get out there and take those trees down. It is beyond the scope of our staff. We don't have a bucket truck in good shape to be able to do that. So we're going to need to get a contractor to do it, and that costs money. But I think we need to do that not only on Kimball Street, but all of the large granite retaining walls throughout the city, because it's not good to have trees growing on the top of the walls. The root systems push the walls out and cause issues. And then even after the trees are cut down, the root balls pose a problem because that allows an area for water to get in and infiltrate behind the wall. So if the wall doesn't have the proper drainage, then it causes issues with freezing and then expanding and pushing that wall out further and causing further deterioration. So I think it's something that we need to do, and we need to do it relatively soon.
Do Do we have?
Move to approve the petition.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's approved. Petition 19123, Councilor Bernie Schultz on behalf of Linda and Mike Brusso of 116 Belmont Street to install a berm to prevent Mount Carmel Street runoff from damaging the grass side and sidewalk in front of 116 Belmont Street.
I took a look at this issue. I agree with this petition. The roads are on the side of a hill. There's a decent slope, and there is erosion that's beginning. And I think a berm would solve the erosion.
Councilor Schultz?
Mr. Brusso is here, and I went up and took a look at it, and he's been actually filling it in for many years. So it isn't, it's erosion, but he just can't do it anymore. So that's why he called me and wants the city to take care of it for us.
Yeah.
A motion? Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve. She's frozen.
Oh, yeah, she's frozen.
Okay.
I'll second. Okay, it's approved.
Okay.
Petition 19223, City Councilor Andrew Kuchar on behalf of Mike Hurley to repair a berm in front of 152 Highview Street.
So
We already had the public, but you want to say something?
I just want to
Yeah.
say, that word should be replaced, not repaired. Now, there is no berm there right now.
Yes. So I looked into this a little bit further, and Mr. Hurley, please correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like, according to DPW's records, on June 5th, we went and prepped that area for the berm installation and removed a lot of the debris that was there. And then, for some reason, the berm crew never got out there to actually install the berm. So this is particularly frustrating for me because now I've got to send crews back out there to re-prep the area. So we're redoing work when it should have just gotten taken care of shortly after it was prepped in the first place. So I apologize for the breakdown in our communication internally, and we just need to get out there and make it happen.
Motion to accept.
Before, just on the motion, so it is being planned to have it replaced, not?
Yes.
So do we need to amend this in order to approve it? Or are we?
I don't think so. I mean, you could make a motion to approve it as amended by replacing the word repair with the word replace.
I make a motion to amend it to replace the word repair with replace. 19223.
Second.
Okay, so the berm will be replaced.
Can I ask when?
Move to approve amended petition.
I can't give you an answer on that right now. As soon as I get it scheduled, I can let you know that.
I'm sorry if you didn't hear me. I meant, I move to approve the amended petition.
I second.
Okay, it's been approved, thank you. Okay, now we have 19323, City Councilor Andrew Kuchar on behalf of Bev Hoffa to replace the berm in front of 466 Franklin Road to combat runoff from Oak Hill Road.
So this one I took a look at. There's no berm anywhere on that stretch of Franklin Road between Oak Hill and this property and beyond. I think putting a berm simply in front of 466 Franklin Road is not going to solve the issue. From reading the email from Councilor Schultz, it sounds like this resident remembers a berm being there in the past. So I went through all of the Google Street View images back through 2009. That's as far back as it goes. I didn't see any berms out there. What I did notice is that at some point someone installed an apron at the end of her driveway, presumably to stop the runoff from kind of going into her driveway. And she's got a storm drain right there at the foot of her driveway. So presumably the other purpose of that driveway apron was to make sure that the flows went into the catch basin instead of into her driveway. I do know that Franklin Road is in dire need of being repaved, and it's within our 5-year paving list. I don't recall exactly which year, but I know it's not at the end and it's not at the beginning. It's somewhere in the middle, so either 24 or 25. I would suggest that either we amend this petition to read something along the lines of replace or install a berm in front of 466 Franklin Road when the road is repaved, or give the petition leave to withdraw. And knowing that when we do repave it, we plan to address any runoff issues at that time.
Is there any way we could, is that apron doesn't exist anymore, so maybe could we do something with that temporarily?
We could take a look at the apron and revise this to focus on the apron instead of a berm. I don't see any use in installing a berm in front of her property specifically, because you've got quite a distance between her house and the intersection with Oak Hill Road, and it travels along the gutter through, I think, 5 or 6 properties before it gets to hers, and then she's got that catch basin right there that all the water goes into. So if her concern is just making sure that the water ends up in that catch basin and not ponding in her driveway, then we can certainly do something with the end of her driveway to make sure that the water stops at the catch basin and doesn't make it any further. But that would be a modification to the apron, not necessarily a berm.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we could hold this and actually have either the petitioner or the constituent come in and speak to this.
Yeah, I could, maybe I could get her to come in.
Sure.
Yeah, why don't we hold it until we can get her to come in?
Okay.
She can better describe the issue.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I could even meet you and her out there if that would help.
Actually, this was Councilor Kuchar's, too.
But she talked to me originally, so
Okay.
I referred to Councilor Kuchar.
Okay, all right, great, thanks.
And there weren't any pictures included with the petition, so I was just going based on what I saw out there versus the historic imagery from Street View. So maybe she's got some additional information that she could provide.
I'm sure she can.
Yeah, okay.
I'm actually going to try to move the meeting along. I did not realize there was a planning board meeting at 6 o'clock. I was not informed of that. So let's get to petition 19424, City Councilor Andrew Kuchar on behalf of Joyce Moretto to repair the berm at the end of Parker and Hollywood.
So this one I wasn't sure about. Both roads have 2 ends, and it doesn't specify which end. There are damages to the berms at both ends, presumably from plowing through the intersections, and just, that's what happens with storms. Sometimes the berms get damaged. So I would just recommend amending the petition to say both ends of Parker and Hollywood, and then approving the amended petition.
I'll make a motion to amend the petition to say both ends of Parker and Hollywood streets.
Councilor Squalia?
Second.
Okay. Amended,
I
now we
second
need
that
to
amendment.
approve. Amended, we have to approve the petition with the amendment.
With the amendment. Make a motion to approve the petition with the amendment.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, amended and approved. 19523, Councilor Fleming, and before I go on, I do have a letter to read, but if this is going to have to move on to the next committee, I won't read the letter, but if we're going to make a decision, I do want to read the letter.
So, you mind if I offer some comment before we do anything with this? So, I currently have an engineering consultant under contract to design exactly this, and they're working on the design.
Are they working, well, let me read the petition so people know what we're talking about.
Sure.
19523, Councilor Fleming, on behalf of several residents, employees, and non-residents of Fitchburg, Mass., a petition to add streetlights or roundabout to the intersection of North Street, John Fitch Highway, and Pearl Hill Road. John Fitch Highway to mitigate traffic concerns, accidents, and pedestrian crossings for safety during daytime hours. With the increase in traffic, this discussion needs to take place before a tragedy occurs, and we have had some accidents there, which is why this was brought to our attention again.
Yep. So the engineering design for this is being funded through ARPA. I have 4 or 5 concept designs for a roundabout at this intersection with various configurations that I need to circulate to police and fire and get their input. It involves potentially some other work on Lincoln Street too, just to figure out, the traffic flow and all that. We don't have funding in place for the construction of that yet, but the design is underway. So I just wanted to let you know that before moving forward with a vote. It might make sense to hold it, and then we can, or I can present those concepts to the Public Works Commission, and maybe you can help me make a decision on which concept is the preferred concept.
Okay, with that, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I do want to put this on the record, and then I will place the letter. One of the constituents, Patricia Steinhauer, is asking to reconsider a roundabout. The man-made pond has been in place for decades, and it's a thriving wetland. Wetlands are biologically diverse environments, important for sequestering carbon and providing critical habitat for many species. Wetlands also help check the destructive power of floods by absorbing energy and storing water during storms, reducing adjacent downstream damage. Additionally, I note the roundabout will not enhance pedestrian safety at this intersection. Drivers of vehicles entering such a roundabout are no more likely to pause for pedestrians than they do currently at the marked crosswalk. Instead of a roundabout, the problem at the intersection would be better addressed with a traffic light with an on-demand signal stopping traffic on John Fitch Highway to allow vehicles to cross or turn from North Street to Pearl Hill Road. Installation of traffic lights would reduce the current danger while also minimizing impact of the Putnam Pond wetland. In addition, the signal should be capable of being manually triggered by pedestrians seeking to cross John Fitch Highway at the intersection. Finally, the speed limit for vehicles approaching the intersection from the northwest Mechanic Street should be reduced from 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour, well before the intersection, further than currently. So I just wanted to get that on the record.
Okay.
And
So I will note that as part of the design, we looked at that option of installing signals. The intersection does not meet the warrants for a signal, so we can't signalize it. And I do disagree with the assertion that the roundabout won't provide a better level of safety for pedestrians crossing the road. That's one of the focal points of the design, in addition to treatment of stormwater in that intersection to try to improve the water quality of the runoff that goes into Putz Pond. But I am happy to provide further information on that to the concerned resident.
thank you. I'll give you your information after.
Okay.
Move to hold the petition.
Second.
Okay, we will hold it. We're all in agreement. 20423, City Councilor Bernie Schultz on behalf of Catherine Tucker of 308 Milk Street to request a sidewalk repair in front of 308 Milk Street.
I do agree that the sidewalk needs to be repaired in this section, and I agree with approval of the petition.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And I'm in agreement, so we are approved on that petition. 21223, City Councilor Bernie Schultz on behalf of Jimmy Cordero of 58 Forest Street and Carrie Harris, 70 Forest Street, to request an improved berm at 70 Forest Street to prevent rainwater running down the Forest Street hill and damaging property at both 58 Forest Street and 70 Forest Street addresses. There is also a sidewalk repair needed in front of 58 Forest Street, and apparently more damage has been caused because of the heavy rains that we've been having.
I did visit this area. I noted that the existing curbing was sunken down to the same elevation as the roadway, so it's not providing any any treatment of the stormwater. It's not keeping it on the roadway. It's going right into these folks' yards. So I agree with the petition, and I agree with installing a berm there and performing the sidewalk repair in front of number 58.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And I'm in agreement. Thank you, it's approved. And these were some petitions that were held. 09322, Councilor Sam Squalia, on behalf of resident Nick Haynes, to add four-way controlled stop at the intersection of Victoria Lane, Industrial Drive, and Game On Way. During times of heavy traffic flow in and out of the Game On facility, residents of Victoria Lane do not have the right of way to cross and thus must wait for long periods while the traffic lines go through. If a four-way stop sign is not feasible, an alternate solution shall be investigated by the city.
So for this one, we've had a consultant look at this and studied the intersection. It doesn't meet the warrants for a signal except for during peak game day traffic. It doesn't meet the warrants for a four-way stop except during peak game day traffic. And since then, Game On has been diligent about hiring police detail officers to control traffic at the intersection. Sergeant Boudreau's put together a temporary traffic control plan for these large events that I think effectively redirects the traffic around the intersection, still allows the private residents on Victoria Lane to pull out, and I haven't heard of any complaints during game day traffic since that plan was put into place by Sergeant Boudreau. That's not to say that there aren't any problems out there. I'm sure there still are during periods of really heavy flow. But that's what I've observed so far. We've installed no parking signage throughout that whole corridor, and hopefully that's alleviated some problems. I know some residents weren't happy with the signage that was installed because they didn't want to look at it. It seems like some residents wanted the signage, others didn't. The ones that didn't speak up and say anything until after the signage had already been installed. So we're trying to work with those property owners as requested on an individual basis to either relocate signage or improve the location or remove it completely if they don't really want it in front of their property. But we have to have the signage out there in order to be able to enforce the no parking ordinance. So there's got to be some level of signage, which I think what's out there right now works. And I haven't had any additional complaints beyond the few that I received right after the signs were installed. So I think we're in good shape there. But certainly if you get any feedback from your constituents, please let me know and we can reach out to them and handle that on a case-by-case basis.
Councilor Squalia, do you want to add anything?
Yes. Did we adjust that intersection in any way, as we had discussed previously, in order to better facilitate the Fitchburg Police Department from allowing this kind of temporary relocation of traffic for the residents?
So when we repave Game On Way, the plan is to make that intersection a little bit larger to allow for that temporary traffic control setup to be assembled and then allow for the traffic to bypass around some of the game day traffic. But we really won't be able to do anything until we actually get Game On Way under construction. And right now there's enough room out there that it seems like FPD is able to do their thing and make sure that the residents of Victoria Lane can get out during game day traffic. So unless you've heard any feedback otherwise, which I'd be happy to hear, please let me know if you do hear anything. But other than that, I haven't heard of any major complaints since Sergeant Boudreau alerted all of his detail officers of what the situation is out there and what to do during these large game day events.
Yeah, I have just heard of just positive, an acceptable solution to the Fitchburg Police temporary kind of coning off and directing local traffic. So it seems to be working.
I have had requests for speed bumps out there, which is a problem that happens anytime that we pave a road. Unfortunately, we can't install speed bumps on a public way. It's just not something we do. It causes issues with erosion. It causes issues with icing during the winter time. It causes issues with plowing. And then on top of that, it kind of creates a safety issue for bicyclists and other users of the road aside from vehicular traffic. So unfortunately, we can't accommodate that request.
Okay, I have one more question. What is the best solution for this particular petition? Do we approve it as is or just give it leave to withdraw because it feels like it has been addressed?
I would suggest giving it leave to withdraw. When we do repave Game On Way, we're planning to make touch-up modifications to that intersection. You know, if we give this leave to withdraw, we're still going to proceed with that work when the construction happens. So I feel comfortable doing that as long as you all feel comfortable doing that.
I make a motion to
Okay, second.
motion to give 09322 leave to withdraw. And Sam
Yeah,
already
please second, yeah. So, okay, this petition is withdrawn. We have two more. 12723, City Councilor Bernie Schultz and Police Sergeant Dan Boudreau request that the Department of Public Works and the High School Department work collaboratively to ensure the widening of Monroe Street to accommodate increased vehicular traffic from South Street School.
So as we've discussed in previous meetings, Public Works has no problem with that. I think the schools department hasn't had the opportunity yet to clear the vegetation that they need to clear so that we can kind of push that edge of pave back. Because of the damage from 2 Sundays ago's storm, we're looking at potentially repaving Fairbanks. I guess it's Fairbanks, Monroe, and Birch. You know, from South Street all the way down through to Salem Street. Actually, all the way down through to Haywood Street. So. I would suggest that when we are able to have the school department conduct that vegetation removal, then we can go ahead and widen the road. I don't know if we should approve this petition. I think maybe it would be a good idea to just approve it, and that way it's on the books and everyone knows that it's something that everyone wants.
I spoke to Sergeant Boudreau this morning on
Nice.
the phone. And he hasn't heard anything about this from the school department. He suggested that maybe Councilor Fleming, as chair of this committee, might be able to write a letter to the school department and see if they can move it along because nothing's really happened. Like you said, we've, you know, discussed, it goes back quite a ways now.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, it is a safety issue there because there's more vehicular traffic coming out of South Street School than ever because of the change in the configuration of the school that is now not an elementary school any longer.
Right.
So
I can do that, I can do that. So we'll make a motion to hold this.
hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make a motion to hold it. And maybe we'll get a
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so this petition will be held, and I will craft a letter to send to the school department. And our final petition for this evening, 12823, City Councilor Vincent Pusateri to lay out and accept a gift or donation as a public way a certain parcel of land known as Ethia Street Extension, also known as Ethia Street as described in the attached plan. I did receive a letter from Jackie Weechie, and I will not read the letter because it's almost mirrors the letter of her opposing this petition as in the last meeting. So I will put this on file, submit it on file.
I did note, it was pointed out by the constituent that Ethia Street is spelled incorrectly. It's spelled E-I-T-H-E-R instead of E-T-H-I-E-R. So I think that should most certainly be modified.
Make a motion to modify the spelling of Ethia Street, both cases in that petition, 12823.
I'll second that. I think we lost Councilor School.
Beyond that, I understand the constituents' concerns with accepting yet another road when we can't necessarily keep up with maintenance on the roads that we do have. However, this development goes back years and years. We're talking between 2011 and 2014. At the time, the ground rules were set. The developer was to do X, Y, and Z, and then the city would accept it as a public way. If we don't hold our end of the bargain up, we're kind of moving the goalposts on that developer, 10 years after the fact. So my opinion is that we need to accept this street as a public way. I think they've satisfied all of the requirements that were outlined in the special permit approval, and I believe that was discussed at the last planning board meeting. From everything that I can see, there's no outstanding issues. So my recommendation would be to accept it as a public way.
Okay. At the last meeting, we did have some issues with the, that they had to attend to, something about. I can clarify that for you if you want. Thank you.
So during our planning board meeting last month, the planning board, we had already recommended about 3 years ago approval of the street because like Nick had said, the developer had done everything the board and the city had asked of them at that time. There was some question about payments for I&I and per lot contribution for the detention basin maintenance fund. The I&I issue was addressed by Commissioner Erickson, and we're foregoing that in exchange for work that was already done, as well as what might have happened in the past. The planning board did recommend, though, that the detention basin fee of $500 per lot still be contributed by the developer. That's all in our recommendation. If it hasn't already got to the council at some point, it'll be drawn up, I'm sure, and sent over there.
So we should hold it then until we get that information.
Yeah, I mean, the council, I think, makes the council as a whole, I think, makes the final decision. But yeah, my suggestion would be, I mean, we had it last month. I just don't know if a letter got written up yet.
I haven't seen it.
Chantel might be able to help better with that, or Paul is on vacation this week, so.
Okay.
So can we accept this pending?
Oh, the letter is pending. I had it sent to legal, but they sent it back to me on a technical issue. I just need to wrap it up and I'll send it over.
Oh, great, thank you. So we can hold it pending the receipt of that letter?
Sure. I make a motion to hold it until we receive the letter.
I agree. Council Squalia? She'll probably agree too. This concludes our agenda for this meeting. The next regular meeting will be determined. It will be in September. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion and second, and if there's no objection, I will take this under unanimous consent.